Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, February 1st, 2018. I'm Keith Tebow. Tonight we have reaction to the second auction to sell the King Philip Mill complex in the city's South End. We provide highlights of Congressman Joseph Kennedy's response to President Trump's State of the Union address. And we have tax return preparation tips for low-income families. But first, let's check out the headline news of the week. We bring in Will Richmond, the digital news editor at the Herald News. Hello, Will. How are you?
Good, Keith. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. King Philip Mill, I referenced it in the beginning. For the second time, I guess, in about a year, less than a year, the King Philip Mill in the south end of Fall River was put up to bid. And when the auction was held this past Monday, the person who won the bid last year won the bid this time, but there's been a twist. Fill us in on the details.
Sure, yeah, the winner was Richard DeRosis with a $200,000 bid. That didn't last very long. About 24 hours later, or a little more than that, the word started to come out that he was not going to be the recipient of the mill, and instead the second bidder, Robert Kafori, would be the successful bidder with his bid of $195,000. This seemed to happen because DeRosis supposedly missed a deadline to provide financing information. So despite the fact that he seemed to have a pretty solid financer in place, the city moved on because that deadline was missed. They said they gave him a little extra time even because of the snow that we had gotten that morning. And now the papers are signed by Mr. Kafori, and we'll see where the project goes now.
Now, there were only two bidders who showed up for the public auction at Government Center. So I know that fortunately for the city, the price of the mill actually went up in this auction. I believe it was a little over $100,000 when Mr. DeRosa placed his bid last year, correct?
Right. It was about, I think, $110,000 with the previous bid. So a little bit more there, but still far behind the $500,000 plus the city was hoping to recoup to cover the back taxes owed on the property.
What was Mr. Kafori's pitch, if you will, to what he plans to do with that property?
Well, he's looking to build single-family homes on the site, demolish some of the mill, put up single-family homes, and then there's another portion that due to concerns about contamination, he would not take down. He would leave that standing. What may come of it is to be seen. And I think he's looking to also add some green space along the Cook Pond in that area as well. So mostly single-family homes. For those people who are familiar with the old Henry Lord on Tucker Street, he's the one who bought that, knocked it down and redeveloped it as well. Then that was a number of smaller single-family homes as well. So that might provide some guidance in terms of what kind of style will come over to the King Philip Mill area.
So he definitely has a history of development here in the city. So we'll see if it follows through. We've been following this for quite some time, unfortunately, with Mr. DeRosa's bid last year falling through in terms of financing, and now Mr. Kafori has his chance to provide those single-family homes at that mill site. All right, next up, actually online this afternoon, and it'll be in the paper tomorrow, was a story that actually was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, reported from the state that Mayor Jaisal Correa, State House News Service is reporting that Mayor Jaisal Correa, through the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, has set up a legal defense fund, which is different from a campaign finance fund. And when you see a politician creating a political defense fund, you know, people's radars go up. What do you guys know about this?
Yeah, well, he's created this fund. It will allow him to raise funds for a legal defense without limitations. If people are donating to a campaign account, can only donate up to $1,000 in a calendar year. And also businesses are restricted from donating to campaign accounts, but businesses can donate to a legal defense fund. So this will allow him to ramp up any sort of fundraising for a potential legal defense. You know, we've reported in the past that he is under investigation by the FBI. The mayor has confirmed that in some ways to us previously as well. So maybe there's some action happening here at the grand jury level up in Boston. We'll have to see how this plays out. But yeah, he's got the system in place now to raise large amounts of money if need be through that defense fund.
And according to the State House News Service article, mentions that the fund was created, but as of this morning, there was no money deposited in it. So right now, there's no money in it, but it is funds that have to be acknowledged publicly, so we would know how much, sort of similar to a campaign finance account, so we would know how much the mayor would have in that fund as it becomes funded and people contribute to it. So we'll have to follow that again. We still haven't heard any news at all in terms of an investigation, other than, again, the mayor has said that he's been under investigation. We don't know the status of that investigation or where it may lead, but interesting to note when we see these things that the mayor has set up a legal defense fund. All right, elsewhere, I don't know if we actually brought this up on this show or not, but there's been a concern by residents at the Riverview Towers in Fall River, right off Columbia Street and Milliken Boulevard, that some residents there who are low-income residents who are able to stay there because of state mandates. The owner of that property is looking to sell, and there's been concerns by those residents that their housing may be in jeopardy. The mayor this week spent 2 hours speaking to the residents, and he has said that, in his opinion, he'd like to talk to the state to make sure that the people who are living there, those seniors and veterans, are able to stay there. But there's also a possibility of whoever buys the property may have the opportunity to change the housing into market rate or even Section 8 housing. Fill in some of the details there, Will, on what is actually happening.
Sure. Yeah, the property itself had been up for sale for a fairly long time. I think it was back in the spring we first reported it had gone up for sale. You know, people are probably familiar with it. It's along the waterfront in the downtown area. In the past month or so, it's become public that a Boston developer is looking to purchase the site. This is a state-approved buyer who would look to, from my understanding, increase the number of Section 8 units in there, and has also sought some funding from the city to help with this effort. On the mayor's end, he has voiced concern about increasing any sort of low-income unit counts in the city, including at that property. And because of this, he has gone to the residents and said, well, we aren't supportive of the way it's proposed. He'd like to kind of see an approach where if current residents move out, the apartments can be filled with market rate renters rather than low income renters. So while he's not looking to displace any of the current residents, he is looking kind of long term here and seeing this as a property that can be developed into something that would be more attractive to that market rate market as well. At this point, we have still not received word from the state if the buyer's purchase has been approved. The deadline was supposed to be January 31st, and we have not gotten a clear answer on what has happened with that deadline. There was some talk of a possible extension, but obviously the residents are very concerned about their future living there. They don't want to get kicked out. Many of them have lived there for a long time, and they're just unsure of their future and how it fits in between what the city wants to do and what the developer is potentially looking at.
Yeah, the Riverview Tower has been there for about 40 years in that location, and a lot of the residents who live there meet low-income guidelines. We talk about Section 8, but this is known as 13A, and apparently the Fall River Housing Authority has a proposal, I believe, from the potential new owners to use upwards of 150 of those units to be based Section 8 housing, and that's why some of the residents there are concerned, where there's about, I believe, 200 apartments in that complex. So a lot to follow here. It can get sort of murky in terms of Section 8 and these 13A and these other low-income housing opportunities, but we'll continue to follow it as we move forward. A couple of other quick bits. Last week we reported that Rob Mellion, the president and CEO of the Bristol County Chamber of Commerce, was leaving that position. He has left, and the board has announced that Vice President Kimberly Monis will be serving as the interim director of the Bristol County Chamber of Commerce until a replacement can be chosen by the board. She's been there, I believe, almost 20 years.
Yeah, she's been in that number 2 position for quite a while as well. So she seemed to be the natural fit to take over on that interim basis. She's well connected with the board of directors and the members, and within the city itself as well. So no surprise she kind of is stepping in on that interim role, and the board continues to say they will take their time in order to make the right hire and not a quick hire.
One other quick note just for next week, the New Durfee High School will be a potential New Durfee High School, and the ballot question will be up at the City Council meeting next week, as the administration and the city is to let people know how much, if the voters vote for the Proposition 2.5 override, how much it will cost them in taxes. We'll find out next week at the City Council meeting. So that's something to look forward to on next week's show. All right, Will, what's coming up over the next few days?
Well, this weekend it's the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Your favorite Patriots are in there. But surprisingly enough, there's a good number of Eagles, diehard Eagles fans that live in this area. So we've been talking with them about what it's like for them to live in enemy territory and, have to watch this continued Patriot success. It's really such a shame for them. But so some good old local Super Bowl coverage and, go Patriots.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, of course, tomorrow's Groundhog Day, so who knows what's going to happen with the weather once the groundhog makes his appearance. Either way, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, you too, Keith.
We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here's some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Fall River Career Center. Hospice Aide. Amedisys Home Healthcare, located at 182 North Main Street, is seeking a part-time hospice aide to provide one-on-one personal care and homemaking services for terminally ill patients in their home. Job number 1015-2668. Secretary. The law office of Thomas Halal Jr., located at 209 Bedford Street, is looking for a part-time secretary to perform secretarial tasks such as writing legal documents and conducting research. Job number 1014-5864. Maintenance worker. Star, located at 386 Stanley Street, is looking for a full-time maintenance worker responsible for routine building maintenance, assist with trash, recycling, snow removal, and painting. Job number 1014-8165. Citizens Bank, located at 501 Rodman Street, is looking to fulfill the following full-time positions. In-store personal banker. Job number 1015-2877. Senior Customer Service Teller. Job number 1013-5760. Walgreens, located at 369 Plymouth Avenue, is looking to fulfill the following part-time positions. Pharmacy Technician. Job number 1014-9718. Loss Prevention Agent. Job number 1014-9723. For more information on these or other positions, visit jobquest.detma.org or call the Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. For the second straight time in a year, the King Philip Mill complex in Fall River South End was sold at auction. As you mentioned with Will Richmond, the second highest bidder, engineer Robert Kafori, was awarded the project after the first applicant, Richard DeRosas, failed to follow through on the initial paperwork. Mr. Kafori signed a purchase and sales agreement for $195,000 to purchase the Kilburn Street property on Wednesday. Now, before the auction was held, both bidders made presentations before the South End Neighborhood Association. President and State Representative Alan Sylvia wasn't impressed with either of those proposals at that time.
Most people know what happened the last time we did this. We did it. The contractor didn't have the fiscal support, finances available to support the proposal at that time. It's a little different this time. We have that same gentleman who came back, Mr. DeRosas, that contractor, he came back. He presented before the Neighborhood Association last week, along with another gentleman who has some experience with building, mostly single-family homes, the old Henry Lord site, and also Stevens Street, where he was involved in the demolishing of some mills. So he also has experience, Mr. Kafori. My concern is the concern of those people who were at the meeting as well. We had over 100 people there. Many of them live in and around, of course, this area where the King Philip Mill is. Our most important objective is to reduce the public safety issue. Fire is the thing we've worried about for several years. Secondly, we want something that is going to return revenue, tax dollars to the city of Fall River. The city already has taken a hit on the tax revenue that was lost. We want something there that's going to produce revenue. Third, one of the most important things is opening up Cook Pond recreationally on this side for the first time ever. This is huge, not only for the South End, but for all of the people in our community, to have another place to recreate, to kayak, to fish, swim. The water quality is improved. We weren't that pleased with the presentation from both of the contractors at the meeting. My concern is that we shouldn't settle for whatever is thrown our way. We have to make sure that those goals and objectives that we have set out long ago are there. So we want to ensure that we truly eliminate the hazard, and that we really look closely at how we're going to open Cook Pond, even though it's a small area, perhaps an acre or less, but somewhere that makes it truly accessible and safe and clean for people who recreate there. I think we shouldn't jump to any proposal. Obviously, the elephant in the room is the demolition that could exceed $2 million easily. And that's why there's not a gaggle of developers that are there. You would think that they would be all over that for the low bid cost. So I remain optimistic. We're closer to the development and achieving our goals than we ever have. But I'm not eager to just say helter-skelter, anything goes. I think we've waited this long. Let's make sure we have the right proposal in place and the right vetting taking place, so that we know that who's ever doing this is physically sound and can move forward with the project.
So you're willing to wait, so to speak?
Oh, yes. I'd rather wait than move with a project that people are not satisfied with, or is not going to achieve those goals that we set.
After the auction and Mr. Kafori's signing of the purchase and sales agreement, City Administrator Kathy Ann Viveras told FRC Media News she did not get any negative reaction with the city's decision to sell the fire-ravaged complex to the second highest bidder.
We didn't encounter any major objections from any of the neighborhood association attendees, but again, I'm understanding now that most are quite comfortable that Mr. Kafori will move forward and finally, at the end of the day, address the public safety problem, which has really been paramount. It is the concern that has been consistently voiced by the neighborhood association that they want that addressed, and I believe that they're at least comfortable that Mr. Kafori is going to address that in a very timely manner.
Did the city have to take one of these two bidders?
No. Again, as the custodian of tax possessions, I could have made the decision to reject the two bids that were made. However, as I mentioned earlier, Mayor Correa has made it eminently clear that we needed to address the public safety problem at the site. And so it was a decision to take advantage of the bidders who were present to try to get the property addressed, to get it renovated, rehabilitated, so that we could address that public safety risk that currently exists to the neighborhood.
U.S. Representative Joseph Kennedy used Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School in Fall River as the backdrop to give the Democratic response to President Trump's State of the Union address this week. Here's some of what the 37-year-old nephew of President John F. Kennedy said about Fall River and the state of the nation, compliments of C-SPAN.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is an absolute privilege to join you all tonight. We are here in Fall River, Massachusetts, a proud American city, an American city built by immigrants. From textiles to robots, this is a place that knows how to make great things. The students who are with us here this evening in the Auto Tech program at Diamond Regional Technical School carry on that rich legacy. Like many American hometowns, Fall River has faced its share of storms. But the people here are tough. They fight for each other. They pull for their city. It is a fitting place to gather as our nation reflects on the state of our union. This is a difficult task. Many have spent the last year anxious, angry, afraid. We all feel the fractured fault lines across our country. We hear the voices of Americans who are forgotten and feel forsaken. We see an economy that makes stocks soar, investor portfolios bulge, and corporate profits climb, but fails to give workers their fair share of the reward. A government that struggles to keep itself open. Russia, knee-deep in our democracy. An all-out war on environmental protection. A Justice Department rolling back civil rights by the day. Hatred and supremacy proudly marching in our streets. Bullets tearing through our classrooms, concerts, and congregations, targeting our safest, sacred places. And this nagging, sinking feeling, no matter your political beliefs, that this is not right. This is not who we are.
And we'll have more FRCmedia news right after this.
Today on Hot Dogs and Cool Cats, we've got Miles. Miles is a 4-year-old pit mix, very energetic dude. Very nice dude as well. Definitely would do great in a home with a lot of active people. Maybe older kids that can run around, throw a ball for him. He would love that. You could basically get, if there was more hours than 24 in a day, he'd probably be out there that whole time playing fetch with that ball. Good game of tug of war, all that jazz. So if you're certainly looking for an active dog, come on down and see him. He would certainly love to see you. We're located at 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts. It's Forever Paws.
So today we have Princess. She's a 2-year-old female Siamese tabby. She was owner surrender. She came in with another cat, so she's good with cats. And she's been here since December 28th of 2017. She's very cuddly, likes to be around people, curious, a little shy, but she's a really great cat, and she's gorgeous, as you can tell. If you'd like to come see her, we're at Forever Paws at 300 Linwood Street, Fall River, Mass., and we're open every day to the public except for Wednesdays, 11 to 4.
Starting this Saturday, low-income families in Fall River can get free tax preparation service at the city's anti-poverty agency, Citizens for Citizens. Here's what residents can expect, though, on day one of the program.
Long lines, definitely long lines. We do open our doors at 9 o'clock in the morning. However, we do have a few staff members that come in at 8. So if there is a line, we do let them into the building before 9. First come, first serve, walk-in basis only, for the month of February. And what we'll do is we usually give out numbers, and at that moment, you will then have a seat that will give you a form to complete by one of our intake workers, and help you through it if you need any help, and go from there.
What should people bring with them?
ID, Social Security card, any W-2s, 1099s, unemployment, gambling, pensions, alimony. A lot of people forget that alimony is a taxable income. and health insurance, which is either a 1095A, B, C, or HC, depending on what type of health insurance you have. If you do want to have direct deposit, you would need to bring in your routing number, account number with you at that visit, and anything else in regards to deductibles. So if you would want to itemize your deductions, bring in all the documentation, or if not, then we can always do a standard deduction. If you have childcare, pay for childcare, information in regards to who you pay the childcare to, name, address, phone number, and EIN number for that childcare provider.
Fall River residents with time on their hands can volunteer to keep the Alfred J. Lima Quikasham Rail Trail free of trash. Rail Trail volunteer Janice Veloso says residents can sign up during Family Fun Night at the YMCA next week.
We've broken our cleanup down into 4 sections this year, so we're going to do some gardening and mulching, which is going to happen from Britland Park to Quikasham Street, because a lot of that is really, really clean and taken care of. So people who don't have a lot of strength, who want to work and do gardening, we have a woman who's going to head up that group. Kids, younger kids. It's a great thing. We're going to get mulch from the city. We're also going to have more of a heavy work type of thing. There's some chain link fences that need to come down. There's some trees that have fallen down, so we need to get them off of the side of the trail and maybe get them cut up, have the city move them. We're also going to do trash in the water. So we have several people with boats, rowboats. If you have a rowboat, you want to come out and volunteer. Last year we pulled out 42 tires. We're hoping to get more than 42 tires. And there's a lot of trash that gets stuck from the winter inside the reeds and stuff, so that's got to come out.
That'll do it for this edition of FRC Media News. You can watch FRC Media News Thursdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. and follow us online at frcmedianews.org. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.